Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. For the record, Rodney Blackshear with the MPO staff. Governor DeSantis' latest executive order 20-193 extended the executive order 20-69 to expire, is set to expire on August 1st to now October 1st, which extends the ability of local governments to virtual meetings. The governor still recommends senior citizens and high-risk individuals avoid crowds and all residents avoid groups of more than 50 people. The governor's task force also recommends continuing to allow virtual participation in phase 2 of the the VOCC adopted resolution 20-182 on June 30th. The MPO followed at its meeting on August 13th. They adopted 20-232, which is in step with the county's resolution to allow county public meetings and now internet meetings and advisory meetings should be conducted both in person and through communication media technology, or hybrid virtual meetings as they call it. The VOC, hybrid virtual meetings are similar to fully virtual meetings with the following exceptions. A quorum must be physically present at the advertised location, which you are. Other voting members can attend virtually for health reasons or to maintain social distancing. Boardrooms are closed to the public except for staff persons and presenters who are invited to attend, and no more than 50 people in the boardroom. Phone in is no longer an option, and public comment is limited to WebEx, email, or the new public comment kiosk in the lobbies outside of the West Pasco Government Center and also over the East Pasco Government Center. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Does anybody have questions for Mr. Blackshear? I guess you did a great job. Thank you. So this is the portion of our meeting we have for public comment. So do we have anyone who wants to speak to the BPAC?
Public comment?
Comment, yes, sir.
As far as anything goes?
Whatever you may want to talk about.
Very good.
You have 3 minutes.
All right.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Alfonso Cucilli. I'm a resident here on and off 41 years in Hudson. Just in the last few years, I see we have made a beautiful, beautiful park that you guys put together and formulated, which I do live right there in Sea Pines. Now, I just want to bring up an issue. Here, my wife and I come, we go to the beach there roughly about 2-3 times a week because it's a little sunshine. So last week, we're riding up the road there, there's 3 little boys carrying fishing poles. And I said, why aren't you walking on the road like this? It's ridiculous. When you go off to the side, they said, well, they're afraid of snakes. I said, all right. But yet, we have those concrete electrical poles there that are roughly about maybe 20 feet to the right. So to me, that leaves you a right of way from Gulf Way all the way to the entrance of the park. That would be a perfect place to put what I call a combination bicycle and what do you call it, a walking pad. Now, I will say one thing, these bicycle pads on 19 that you got, very dangerous. You look, I don't even know if you have a fatality here, let's pray, right here on the corner, with a garbage truck, with a bicycle. The thing here is, this isn't 20 years ago when you only had a 2-lane highway. We got 6-lane highways now. And nobody's obeying the rules, they're always blaming the driver. Nobody's obeying the rules as far as stopping. And we basically got to get to, like you go to Walmart. You want to pull into the thing there, people are just racing across. Nobody puts lights on their bike. I don't understand. So, and nobody's following the rule that you're supposed to move with the flow of traffic. But again, addressing the other thing in Hudson, that would be a great thing, and it would open up that whole lower section of Hudson for people, afford them the opportunity to be able to go along safely. It's roughly about 1.5 miles, which probably I would say we should put like a 6-foot concrete pad from there right into the park. I mean, I see right over here on Ridge Road, you have a bicycle path that's 5 feet wide, and then you got a walking path right alongside of it that's 8 feet wide. all we need there is a 6-foot path going from there to the park, and I think that would be sufficient.
And you said that was Gulfway Drive?
From Golf Way, right to the, what that does, it opens up that whole area for people, you know, like children, everybody in general. But we do have the room, I mean, we do have what they call a right-of-way rule, am I correct?
Are you talking about on 19 or behind that?
No, on Dixie Highway.
Okay, Dixie Highway.
Yes, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I should have addressed it a lot better. So I'm saying from Dixie Highway.
I know where.
On the east side of the road,
Yeah.
you have those concrete electrical poles, which is roughly about 20 foot off. What I'm saying is, this would open the door for basically bicyclists and people, pedestrians that want to walk, they can carriage, whatever they want to do. I mean, I got other things I could hit on, but I feel like, I think that's really a top issue, because you got a beautiful park there, and why not have it where the people are? I mean, there are thousands of people that can utilize that.
Yeah.
And I go there, my wife and I, we're there at least 3-4 times a week to the park, and we see what goes on. I mean, people are trying to ride their bikes. Sometimes you have on the weekends, your mothers walking with the carriages for whatever reason. It's a long haul to see, but they do it.
Yeah.
So-
If some consideration could be given for some project like that.
So when it comes to Old Dixie Highway, and we're gonna actually look at the lot, at the TA projects, that email was sent in that request. So it will be added to that list and evaluated. So that's how sidewalks and most of our multi-use paths are done, as the group knows. We're gonna look at some of those projects. Old Dixie's already on the TA list. So I'll do a brief overview of those projects and some other projects on the list. But David's new and Anthony's new. So the way sidewalks basically go, we put them on a list, we evaluate them based on several different factors, and then we put them on a list, and then they get added to that list, and we look at ways of funding them. So that's kind of, yeah. So we'll look at all those things with that project. Old Dixie's already on there. That next piece, I'm not totally sure about, but it's on the
So
list.
TA, for those that don't know what that means?
So those are transportation alternative applications. The MPO seeks funding through FDOT for projects. We don't basically plan the projects. We just find the funding for them. And then the county basically is the one that constructs and does the work of the program itself. So that's kind of how this process works. So that's that. And Debbie Malone's on there?
Yes, this is Debbie. I have two quick things. One is it's difficult to hear the other person that's doing the public comment, just to let you know that it was difficult to hear what he was saying. And secondly, I did send an email to add public comment as well. I'm hoping that actually got received.
Debbie, I didn't get anything, but that doesn't mean that I can't pull it up later. But if you want to go ahead and just, since you sent that email, go ahead and do that. Please let us know. You got 3 minutes.
Oh, all right. I'm going to try to do it in 3 minutes then. That's why I sent the email. Okay, this is what I'll have to say. It is time for change here in Pasco County. It's time for pedestrian and bicyclists to be the main priority. Pedestrian and bicycle safety needs to be more important than vehicular driver convenience. First, we need to provide proper sidewalks on both sides of streets, especially in areas where there is pedestrian traffic. In congested areas, people are more likely to need to walk places. Let's not focus on our sidewalk money on long stretches of open highway where few people are likely to walk. Those areas can be done later. Let's focus on the real needs. One such area is the stretch of Congress Street and Newport Ritchie between Massachusetts and Ridge Road. The sidewalk on the west side is often in disrepair or non-existent. On the east side, there is craziness. Recently, a sidewalk was constructed south of Massachusetts Ave, but ends at Massachusetts. It picks up again at Lowland Ave, going north to Ridge Road. What happened to the section between Massachusetts and Lowland on the east side of Congress? Do we not matter? There are residential areas, many with elders and people with disabilities. In addition, there are several types of businesses along this stretch of road. Pedestrians do not have a safe way to walk along Congress Street, so they are not able to frequent these businesses. Additionally, crossing Congress Street between Massachusetts and Ridge Road, pedestrians, including wheelchair users, must often travel in the street or remain secluded at home. While this is a relatively short section of Pasco County Road, it needs updating before someone gets seriously hurt or killed. I have tried for nearly 2 years to get this problem fixed with no results. Now is the time to act on this area or other similar area sections of roadways. I've also requested to put an audible pedestrian light at the corner of Massachusetts Ave and Congress Street with no result. These problems exist in other areas of the county as well. We need proper sidewalks along both sides of the street, connected frequently by installing safe pedestrian crossings. Crosswalks with audible pedestrian lights, underpasses, overpasses must be used much more. All bus stop locations must have safe means of crossing the street to access either side. On all busy areas, there should be safe crossings, no more than a quarter of a mile apart. It is unfair and unrealistic to expect a pedestrian to walk long distance crosswalk, cross the street, then walk back where he or she needed to go. US 19 is a good example of this problem. Another solution will be to slow down traffic. Yes, it may cause some congestion, but pedestrian safety and access need to be the priority. There are so many businesses, medical facilities, stores, etc., that could be frequented often if more people could get there. Stop prioritizing vehicular convenience. It's time to focus on pedestrian and bicycle safety and convenience. It's time to stop the insanity of widening streets to alleviate congestion. It's time to get vehicles off the road.
Thank you, Debbie.
So I know that's been brought up before about Congress. Tina, do you know if that has been ever put on a list and, looked at since your tenure?
Yes, it has, and because that sidewalk's on the other side, it's very, and there's not really much space there. So they're going to look at, especially the audible signal.
Right.
But it's been sent to our Public Works folks program to see if there's anything else that can be done.
Maybe it's a good time for me to ask, since she brought up those beacons. I know there was that bill going through the Florida House and Senate. Do you recall what happened to that, to remove those?
It's been squashed for the moment. The
Okay.
rapid beacons, which is a little bit different than what she's talking
Okay.
about. But yeah, there's nothing happening right now. Becky Alfonso actually is going to give us a legislation update. She might be able to add something to that as well.
Thank you.
And also, Tina, is it a stool on Massachusetts?
Right.
Is that on the left side or the right side?
I'm not sure. Debbie Bullock does all of our safe routes to school and all of our sidewalks too. So she's the one that really, with our program, with our construction folks, takes a look at it and kind of goes from there. If it can be used, safe routes to school funds, she'll find it too. But they're very strict on how those funds are used.
All right. Any other public comment? Thank you all for providing your input, and I'm sure Tina will carry that along as she always does. So the only thing I would say is that the government process moves very slowly. Even if it's considered a high priority, just move slowly. So don't give up. Coming and speaking is important. So thank you. So the next item is minutes. I know minutes were emailed to everybody. Do we have any need to make corrections to minutes?
Madam Chairman, I move approval.
I don't have a correction, but I have a question about it.
Okay. Can we get a second?
The video that we saw about kids going to school, I never saw anything on television, and now that school has started, I thought maybe there might be. But the other question I had is, in looking back, it occurs to me that the video that we saw, the kids were dressed in very dark clothes very early in the morning, and that's a very dangerous situation. But that was not any mention of that in the video. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay.
So Vision Zero, we just finished up that first phase, and that was the videos that we were taking for our library, and that was just some of our first work. So that was what we were looking for, some comments. But that was part of the reason that video was dark, because that's what's happening, is kids are wearing dark, and that makes you have to be even more aware. That's the whole point, to look. So we're going to start our second phase of Vision Zero. So it's going to be an education component mainly. So that's where we're really going to focus on using those video clips. We took hours of clips from 19 and Ridge Road, from 54 and the Starkey Trail. So we're going to use those clips for our future education of Vision Zero.
That's great. I just didn't hear any mention of it on the video, but thank you.
Thank you, Joel.
All right, so we had a motion. Did we ever get a second?
I'll
Joel,
second.
second. All right.
Who first was it?
Tyrone,
Thank you.
any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion is, minutes are approved.
Any
So the next item for us is report. I think Tina, you're up.
So this is what we were just talking about. So, Todd, go ahead and skip to that next page. So go to that first page. So I told you briefly last meeting that the MPO approved, getting ready to approve the LOP, which is our list of priorities. This is the list that we compile to pick to go for funding. So the first table is a lot of road projects, but now our trail projects, our main trail projects, because they're big ticket items, now fall under this table 1. Eventually, we're probably going to have everything under one table, you guys, because obviously it's one big pot of money at the end of the day. So, but I want to just go over and give you a little bit of brief summary of those trail projects, because I didn't get a chance to do that at the last meeting. So if you go down to number 7 of that 2020 priority list, that first trail project on the main table at number 7 is Cody River Underpass, okay? There is no funding. We have not done an application for it yet. We're in the works of going to that next step of design, and that means we have to get more than the county involved. The city of New Port Richey and the city of Port Richey are a part of that project, so it'd be a project with them together. So that next step for that one is design, and then we can go and figure out the construction cost and who's going to pay for that ticket. So
Would DOT be part of that?
the ironic issue with the Cody River underpass is the golf carts are included in
Right.
it. So it poses a different issue with funding, because you can't use bike ped funding for golf carts, but there's other ways of securing that type of funding. So so that one just is getting ready to go. We're going to figure out the design part of it.
How do we get
And
a
then-
copy of that feasibility study?
I can send that to you.
Okay.
Yeah, and that finalized right at the end of April or May as well. So the good news is Suncoast Trail overpass at 54, which has been on here for a while, and the Suncoast overpass for 52 at Suncoast are both penny for Pasco funds. So they're a done deal. 54 is getting ready to go to design. And 52 is not far behind it. So those two have funding, and you should start seeing something hopefully with the 54 project pretty soon. I'll get Sam in here as soon as we get some of these projects going and give you guys some presentation, because I'm sure the 54 overpass is going to be quite interesting for Suncoast. So we'll kind of go from there.
Brilliant.
Marine Parkway overpass, we're looking at different options for it as well. The Starkey Trail overpass, which is everybody's big ticket in more than one way, is got a Sun Trail application for it, and we're working with DOT on that project as well. So if we go down to Suncoast Trail overpass at 52, I just mentioned to you that's in penny for Pasco funds. So it's, you can see the construction set for 2023. And then with the Coochie, State Trail extension is in design. They just finished up design. They're getting ready to start going out for construction bids, okay? I'm going to get Sam to do that one next meeting too, to give you a little bit more information on that. I went out and looked at it a couple weeks ago.
Which one's that?
with the Coochie State Trail Extension, the Hardy Trail connection.
So they have picked a route, I assume.
They have picked a route. There's some wiggle room, I'll be honest with you, with one road, and I don't know exactly what that is. That's why I want Sam to have that discussion with you too, because I don't know the project very well.
Great, thank you.
So, very good news. Orange Belt Trail, we're getting ready to do that route study. And then you can see that we're hoping to do construction, that first piece in 2023, 25. I'm hoping to squeeze as much as I can out of that first segment, all the way to Suncoast if I can. So we're going to do a route study all the way though, from beginning to end. That means, yeah. So we're going to get as much as done as we can. Really excited about Orange Belt, especially if we can make that connection to Suncoast. I think it'll do tremendous for our economics as well. So those are our trail projects that are in that table. I just wanted to give you a little brief overview of where those projects are in the priority list and how they're moving forward. Really good news. So any questions on those real quick, David?
Well, it's not on the list, but what about the expansion of the trailhead at State Road 54? And what's happening with that?
I think that's going to be part of the 54 overpass. They're going to look at that when they do the overpass. Yeah. They've always had issues, as you know, with utilities and everything else and right away at that location. But they're going to look at that when they do design for the overpass, maybe underneath the overpass. Again, I'm hoping that Sam and whoever the consultant is for that project, we can start looking at some of those things.
Is that supposed to be in conjunction with the developer there?
Right. I'll let Sam come in here. I have no idea when it comes to the design part of that at this point in time. So, and again, they're in the process of bids for that project as well.
Okay. Is there a way how I could be involved in that?
You're in it right now.
A little bit more intimately?
No, that will be, again, that's part of what this committee is. Once that's consultants hired and they start coming to us showing the plans. That's what this committee is about.
All right. Thank you.
So Tina, and since we're going to have Sam, you think next meeting to talk about these things?
Yeah, I tried to get him this week, but he's on vacation and I couldn't convince him to change his vacation.
What I was going to suggest, we might want to ask Melanie Romanelli from the city of Dade City to come to that same meeting and bring her renderings of the trail hub or the bike hub. I think they're calling it the Visitor Center, but still a bike hub to me. And that would go well with his discussion of the connections.
Send that email to me.
Okay, I'll do it.
Okay,
I'll
good.
do it. All right.
So we're going to go on to that, still stay on that lot, please. Go back, Todd. Sorry. I wanted to show them what we're really doing here. So go back to the lot. So this was the first list of priorities I've ever done. For those who don't know, I just started with Hillsborough, with Pasco County. I retired from Hillsborough. That was a Freudian slip. So then I'm going to go back. This next sheet, these are programs underway. Go back one more, Todd. You had it. So something we didn't do last year to the lot was we didn't really outline all the projects underway right now. And this is the list of everything. And there's probably, I missed a few probably at this point. But this is everything that was on our prior list of priorities that are now under project underway at different levels, either design. We normally do feasibility, design, and construction. The feasibility decides if it's even feasible. But these are all, a lot of these you can see, some of them are sidewalk projects, some of them are the Orange Belt Trail segment is on there. So there's a little bit of everything. If you see at the bottom, all the sidewalks are near the bottom. I try to kind of lump everything in the group that they belong to.
Hey,
So all
Tina,
those
Tina, sorry to interrupt. This is Gunther. I got a text message from Commissioner Starkey to ask you to please unmute her.
Todd's doing that. Thank you, Gunther.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's not part of our county, but interesting. David, if you don't already know, you might be interested as an avid cyclist. The Ayers Road extension in Hernando County is being built from the Parkway and then all the way to 41 north of Town. So if you had any interest in cycling or running from the Parkway, say to Brooksville or 41 there at Spring Hill Drive and 41, there's going to be a trail along there. That's already under construction, probably maybe a quarter done. So that's nice for me because I work up there and bike. So,
Great. I'm up that way a lot.
yeah.
And then if you ride the Suncoast, you see the Suncoast Parkway 2 under
Yeah.
construction and the overpass pretty much done.
Yeah.
Over 98 there.
Yeah.
So these are projects that are underway. As you can see, all the sidewalks at the bottom are projects underway. And that leads me to the next page, which is our transportation alternative projects, which are sidewalks and multi-use paths. Mainly they're along our right-of-ways of the roadway. Cody River used to be on this, but it's a bigger ticket item, so we moved it to table 1 so it have more funding options. And then from there, we prioritized everything from 2019 to 2020. So I'm going through that list as we speak, looking at right away, all those things. Go ahead and that next page, because I think Old Dixie Highway's at the bottom somewhere there.
It is.
So Old Dixie Highway's down there at the bottom, but I'm looking at every one of these, looking at right away, how far they are, all those things, and then we'll submit them to our program folks to do some surveying and see which projects can kind of fall into place where we can get funding for. But all these get ranked based on safety, speed of the road, several different factors as well.
What's the difference between number 6 and number 15? I mean,
Where they go
Dixie-
project from, where you see where it
all
says
right,
project from. and-
Gulfway to Racetrack and then North Bay Brady to Gulfway. All right, I got it.
So a lot of these come in at different time. So how long they're on the list, they get some points too. As well as there's like 12 or 13 different factors, point factors that are scored for each one of these. But we look at every one of them because if I know where they're at and there's a developer coming in, I'll hook into the developer to try to get them done as well. So
So I guess for the new members, I've been on the board or the committee for 4 years, and I think one of the most significant things that we've done since I've been on the committee that I've witnessed is getting the Starkey Trail overpass at 54 for the new Starkey Gap Trail, if you will, by Longleaf. We had that essentially added to the list, or at least recommended it be added to the list to the MPO. So that's one of the things that we can do if you have a project that you want to bring up and we can discuss, then we can, vote on it and raise it to the elevation of MPO to look at it and Tina and her staff to look at it and put it on this list. So
How do they do that? Do they do something like a count of traffic as far as prioritizing?
So we're probably going to go to a ranking system for our trail projects too. And the reason why I say that is because our multi-use trail group, the regional group, which is Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco, and Hernando, and Citrus, they use that ranking system to regionally prioritize trails as well. So we want to kind of match what everybody else is doing. So then when we look for funding, hey, we're doing the same thing everybody else is doing. So we're going to try to match some of the same criteria as well. But this is not the only committee. We have a citizen advisory committee that's very active. And then between the MPO, between the citizen advisory, the BPAC, and then we have a technical committee, which they sit down and look at them too, which is really, really good because they can tell us if this is feasible or realistic as well. And then the MPO board's the one that ultimately votes on it. And then it goes to the board as well. Explain it clear as mud.
You did good.
And at what point can we, as a sort of make a proclamation and elevate it to the MPO at any meeting or during a certain time of the year?
Let me ask Ronnie that. we can bring certain projects to the committee, to the MPO, and we'll kind of go from there. I mean, that's the whole point of the BPAC being part of the MPO is, and they actually go over our meeting. So that can be brought up during that MPO meeting when Randy talks about the BPAC meeting as well. We do a report at the MPO for each one of these advisory committees as well.
Yeah, so I would say that we put a couple of ways. One, Tina takes everything directly to staff, which is probably the best way because it gets recorded and incorporated. But yes, we get to talk directly to MPO once a month and say the things that have been of high interest. And sometimes I think that if it's something that rings a bell with them, that'll help drive it home too. So, you know, I would just comment, I hadn't really looked at this list carefully until now. And the sidewalk there on Centennial Road, I recently moved to a house on Centennial Road. It's Project 11. And school's back this week. And I can tell you, yes, it's a very narrow road, a lot of traffic. So that makes sense to have that on the sidewalk list. There's 3 schools right next to each other, 2 public, 1 private. So,
like I said, I'm in the process of going down this list. I think that's about to the spot I'm at, Randy, and
Okay.
notice that. So I'm actually going through that list and looking at the points and the right of way is the biggest thing, more than anything. Because if we don't have the right of way, we have to try to buy it. So that's a different story.
and the shoulders are very narrow on that road, so I
Very
don't know. There is some public property there, but I don't know how much, so. All right, anything else on that list, Tina?
Yes, well, this is Catherine. Can I speak?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Catherine, go.
Yes, go ahead.
I did want to say that there is, the way that these board, there is criteria, and it's a technical ranking with safety, all different kinds of things that are taken in consideration, because otherwise the commissioners would just be using political muscle to elevate a project. I can tell you Leonard Road, Commissioner Mallory was trying to get that one done, and I've been trying to get that one done, and I'm finishing up my 8th year. So a few years ago we were on 21. We were number 21. So we're slowly moving up the list. And that's a $200,000 project. It's not a big project, but it's
Yes,
your attention to something.
yes, this is Ronnie Blackshear.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Commissioner. I thought you were done. Sorry.
Okay. At our last board meeting, we had 2 interesting things happen by the commissioners. One, Commissioner Wells asked for a motion to take construction money or design money from the Moon Lake widening, which has been pushed off, $800,000, and build a multi-use trail from his neighborhood down to Ridge Road. And I just say, because I don't know the name of that road. We built a sidewalk on the side a couple years ago because we had a number of kids dying there. I always was frustrated that it was a sidewalk and not a multi-use path. But so, Tina, were you aware that the board took that action last week?
Not officially. We had a little bit of discussion before the meeting about Moon Lake because it was brought up, and that something was maybe in the. That's the only thing I've heard. So.
And they're wanting to put the trail down the west side, but all the amenities, the high school, the Ridge Road Trail, the park, everything's on the left side. So I was really asking them to get with you on, what's best. And this multi-use path, this $800,000 path will get torn up when they widen Moon Lake. Because it's not going to be graded right. It's not going to be graded for the expansion. So I wanted to see it on the other side that's already graded, where the sidewalk is. So maybe you can interject in that. The next thing that we all need to be alerted to is Commissioner Moore has decided that there needs to be a pedestrian overpass over Bruce B. Downs. Because it's such a big intersection. And he said he's getting to work on that. And I said, you know, there's a process and a list and a line. And you need to, again, get with Tina and you, Ronnie. He can't just muscle his way into beachfront all the other overpasses that we've been working on for years. So
You're talking about 56 and Bruce B. Downs is where he wants it?
yes, yep.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess the West Side Moon Lake Trail, I've talked to a few of the citizens that also live in that same neighborhood as Commissioner Wells, and I guess, you know, sadly, one of the residents' sons passed away, crossing over from his neighborhood, roughly around his neighborhood, to the east side to get to the sidewalk and then, of course, get to school. So I don't know how that's going to go, but it sounds like perhaps until the widening happens and maybe a trail happens later, if in fact that does happen later, then maybe some sort of beacon or some sort of significant crosswalk to help, you know, these kids crossing the street before they get to Ridge Road, to cross the street to get to school safely. I think that was the main issue for them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there needs to be some safe way to get across, and not only there, in a couple places on that road. And is that a better answer, and than spending $800,000 on a trail you're going to tear up when they still have to cross the road to get to school? Right. So Tina, please, and Ronnie, please get involved in that discussion.
So this is a good kind of segue that I think this committee will start kind of changing how we look at things, because the education component of this, the engineering education and enforcement has to be a part of this for the safety to work. So we can build multi-use paths, we can build overpasses, but unless we have the education component and enforcement component, and we can't afford overpasses over every road, you guys. It's not the answer. We have to learn to cross the road, and there's education that needs to come with that, okay? So we're gonna start looking at education engineering. That's what our Vision Zero is about, okay? And that's how we're gonna save those lives. I read every one of those crash reports to study them, to figure out the best way to keep those things from happening. Unfortunately, we don't see the lives that are saved. We only see the young man that darted across the road right after the time change that next Tuesday, and it was dark.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of those things. So that we're gonna work on those things. We can't fix all of them, but we're gonna work on the 3 E's together so we can make a difference, okay?
Let me ask you this, Tina.
Yeah.
How many crashes was over there off of 56 and overpass? Do you know?
56.
No, I mean, there's crashes all over. If there's a specific one, I can look it up.
Those two don't meet. So what are you saying there? You mean 56 and Bruce B. Downs?
Talking about 56 and Bruce B. Downs.
Yeah, and Tina, to your point, they also have to build these intersections with refuges in them. I don't know if there's one there, and that's a long road to have to cross. And if you get stuck in the middle, where are you?
Yeah, and we're starting that. In fact, Sam and I just had a discussion with FDOT about that same instance about refuges in mediums, with maybe some kind of signalization activation in the medium as well. So yeah, we're having that discussion as well with DOT, and that's like 54 and 56. So that's DOT roads that we're having that discussion with, because it is their roads.
That's good.
Mark, you've been unmuted if you'd like to speak.
Yeah, can you add me as a panelist, Todd?
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you. That's all I have. That's going to be added.
I think that's Captain Starkey.
Okay, I did get a request for the group to look at Plath Road for a sidewalk or a trail. That runs between Little and Rowan. And now there aren't a lot of people on it. And I don't know the process, but I did get a request. So I just wanted to bring it to the group if someone could look at it.
So send that email to me, the request. That's how we just had one from Old Dixie as well. So send that request where they're talking about, and we'll add it to the list and rank it accordingly and look at right away.
All right, I think you're still up
So are we going
to the next item.
So I wasn't supposed to do this, but anyway, this is our congestion management process update. Wally did it for the MPO, the CAC, and the technical, so maybe I can wing it after hearing it 3 times. But the main points, and I talked to Wally about this, that probably interests you, go ahead and skip a couple more pages. So there you go. So what we're looking at, these performance measures, are the roadway, public transportation, movement of goods. Bike ped's a big one, safety, and then the transportation. So we look at congestion, and then of course with congestion comes the safety component, and that's what basically this performance measure talks about. All right, we've added quite a few miles of multi-use paths, trails, and sidewalks. So when you add more, you're going to have more congestion as well. So go ahead to the next one, Todd. So we updated this system report and includes all those. I'm going to skip to a really neat graphic, which helps me. This is everything you need right here, okay? So this tells you everything about the roadways. Our bike ped facilities, we increased by 40 miles on congestion and 12 miles of pedestrian facility on congested roads. Those again are probably most likely sidewalks. But then you can see the model that we use as well. Someone just mentioned earlier about side path on one side, sidewalk on the other side, and then bike lanes. That's the way we want our right of way to be in Pasco County. And sometimes we don't get that, but that's what we really, really fight for, is all users. And that's what Vision Zero is about, is all users as well. Go ahead and next one. So some of the information, the trends. This one I wanted to talk about. So if you look at total crashes, they have gone up. Several things have gone up. Lane departure crashes have gone down. So those really kind of give you an idea of what's happening crash-wise, okay? They use mainly crash reports for this. There's some different models that they use for these reports, but you can see some things have gone up and some things have gone down as far as crash statistics go. Next one. So they identified some corridors. Next one, Todd. So these are corridors. The 3 main ones that stick out are the 3 purple screens. All right. And one's in Dade City, and then the Gun Highway, and then County Line. So these are some of the 3 main congestion areas that came out of there. Gun Highway is a tough one because most of it's in Hillsborough County, and we know that Gun Highway is not going to change in Hillsborough County. So I won't go any further than that. Dade City, there's some potential, my understanding with that 98-301 junction of some improvements, which is badly needed. And then County Line is some work going on with Hernando County and some improvements on County Line Road as well. So those are the 3 main corridors that kind of came out of this study that we want to work on. Go ahead, Todd, to the next couple ones. So those are the 3 main ones that I just talked about. There's some strategies. The interesting part, most of these strategies were right before COVID. And if you look at them, a lot of them deal with alternative work hours and working from home. Well, we did that kind of by accident already. So some of these things happen already just by COVID-19 happening as well. So a lot of these, I think, are just some of the only ways that we can improve on congestion, because there is no way to widen the road or, ease that congestion. Again, intersections are a big part of that. So some of these things happen by accident, I should say, already.
Have you been able to total the crash data so far this year compared to?
I'm going to show you
Okay.
that in a little bit here, which is quite interesting itself too. So
Let me comment about what you have on the screen. The 98 Lock Street intersection was just improved by DOT. They did a road diet project there. I don't know that it's been long enough for us to have new statistics, but it should have helped that intersection considerably.
And there was a conversation, and I think it was from our CAC group, that mentioned that there's some potential right of way, that there's some vacant land that might potentially be able to add to some changes there as well too. That was just brought up in one of the meetings, so as well.
That 52 that you mentioned, isn't that already scheduled to be made to a 4-lane?
So if you
To the
go
west of
back
41?
if you go back to our LOP list, it's on there. Yeah, it's in sections to be done. Part of it's got funding, part of it doesn't have funding. And you can see some of it being done as you speak. But if you go back to our LOP list, it's segmented out all the way to 75. And again, that has sidewalk and multi-use path on each side too, so. I think that's about it. Please don't ask me.
We preempted them.
Debbie?
Yes, I just had a quick question. If you go back to the chart, that's the crash data, that has the different reasons for crashes and what have you. Now, it has a amount for pedestrian bicycle crashes. Now, is there data relating to if those crashes involve, say, an impaired driver or an elder driver? How does that get documented in that chart? Is it one or the other? Is it both? That's my question.
So it's not going to be documented in this study. That's where I go in each one of those crashes and study them and take out that data for future reference as well. That's not part of this report. This one's just kind of a general count of crashes and crash types. We actually go further into crash types.
Okay, so what happens if a crash falls into two categories? That's my question.
You mean biped?
Yeah, biped or say something else. In addition, say one crash involves, let's say, an elder driver and a pedestrian, as an example. How does that come up in that chart? How is that counted?
So if it's involved a bicycle or pedestrian, it'll show up as a bicycle pedestrian
Or
crash.
if it also involves an elder driver or an impaired driver, how would you determine where to put it in the chart?
That will not show up on this chart because that's not what this report shows.
All right, I'm a little confused then. To have those sections, you have those things like, say, oh wait, okay, all right, it doesn't show up. It only shows up as bike ped.
Correct.
Okay.
So we'll get into a little bit of crash data here in a minute.
Okay,
So-
thank you. Okay.
All right, Randy.
All right, ready for procedures book, right?
So that was everything that was a short version of everything we just did, by the way, okay? So, but I do want to go to this next one if Todd will show. This is the most recent crashes and again, it just shows crash data, which is the bike ped and motorcycle. It doesn't go into the details. Now, the state of Florida every year puts out this huge report that goes into what Debbie was just asking about. Age, male, female, all those things. The state of Florida does an in-depth report every year that shows all those. But the ironic thing that I wanted to show you with this, that we looked at our community traffic safety team, we would think with COVID-19, with less people driving, we were going to have less crashes. That is not what happened. So if you look down by bike fatality history by county, pedestrian, they actually went up. Motorcycles went up too. So we've been doing some discussion between Hillsborough and Pinellas. We couldn't figure out why that happened.
Maybe more people are biking as opposed to even driving anywhere at all.
Yeah, this is our theory, and we're gonna kind of, that's one of them. We're definitely,
I got more
ask every
time.
bike shop right now that.
I got more time, so I'm
Yeah.
riding my bike.
Yeah, and that we've seen it. Our percentage of use of all our facilities, Pinellas, Rails to Trail, 100 to 200% increase of use since COVID, okay? Ironic thing is, less people are commuting by bike, more people are using it for recreational and other things. But I heard in the one last meeting is that Pasco didn't have the decrease in car traffic that Hillsborough and Pinellas had. So that might have something to do with it.
Also, yeah, that might have to do with where they're commuting from.
Right.
And to.
Right. Another thing is, we think that the speed is higher because there's less people on the road. So when you have higher speeds, we have more crashes. There's just, the data proves that. So we're thinking that's kind of, and unfortunately, maybe the enforcement part of it, because of COVID, has been a little bit less. So that hurts a little bit. So I just wanted to, I look at these. This is how we figure out what we're doing and what we're not doing, you guys. So I wanted to show this to you as well, because I was really surprised at crashes going up. But our use has just increased. Pinellas, I showed it to you last BPAC, 100%, 200% increase with their hotels closed.
Wow.
So. Any question on that? We'll start looking into the enforcement education, like I said, in future meetings. We'll start really diving into crash types and how to prevent them, okay? Because that's what this committee needs to be part of. So that's it for me for the crash report.
All right. So is Becky with us?
Yes.
Well, it's time for you to tell us about FBA things.
Okay, I can do that. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for having me at your meeting. My name is Becky Ponso. I'm the Executive Director of the Florida Bicycle Association. If you're not familiar with the association, we're a state membership-based education and advocacy organization. And part of my presentation tonight is just to kind of go over networking and programming. So Todd, if you want to hit the next slide. So I know it's small, I got that, but we put FBA at the top. So if you kind of do a color coordination, I'm going to break down these segments from national to state to regional to local. So Todd, the next slide. All right, so on the national level, our association, we actually work with the League of American Bicyclists, which annually has a national bike summit. And during that national bike summit, we actually lobby U.S. Congress for federal funding, which is what the Florida Department of Education or Department of Transportation gets that Tina was talking about that funds local projects. So the money doesn't just magically appear. You have to ask for it, but you have to ask for it at all levels. And so our association, I serve as the state coordinator for Florida. We go up there, and that's what we do with Congress on a yearly basis. In addition to asking for funding, we actually ask for policy such as putting safety measures in automated vehicles so that they can properly read a pedestrian or a bicyclist. They may think they do right now, but we don't think they do it efficiently enough. And we also work with the International Mountain Bike Association. So this is for cyclists that are using natural surface trails. There's funding involved in that. There's national parks. There's all kinds of different networking that can go on at the national level. And then from the League of American Bicyclists, I actually get to meet other state advocacy groups, such as the Florida Bicycle Association, and we talk about state-to-state issues that we face. And then for the regional for off-road, it's SORBA, that's the Southern Off-Road Mountain Biking Association. What's not on this particular slide is more of the education, which we get through the League of American Bicyclists and also the American Bicycling Education Association, which is actually the home of Cycling Savvy. So we actually do promote all of those educational components. And we work with, on the national level, with Safe Routes to School and some of those other organizations. All right, next slide. So on the state level, we mentioned the Department of Transportation. We actually do work with the Department of Health, the Department of Environmental Protection, so that's going to be your state parks, natural surface trails. And then we go up to Tallahassee every session and talk to legislators about laws or primarily policy issues. For instance, this last session, we were working with the electric bicycle bill. We actually got a couple amendments on that bill that were going to help some cyclists, such as we got the seat height restriction removed from the bicycle statute. That may not seem like a big deal, except that the state did not recognize a bicycle in statute if the seat height was 25 inches or higher. Well, it recognized it 25 inches or higher. So what that meant is recumbents were not looked at as a bicycle. And what that meant is that people with these very expensive recumbents couldn't insure them because the insurance companies are looking for what's actually in statute. So this opened up a lot of possibilities for veterans or anybody using recumbents or special bicycles that have lower seats, that these are now considered bicycles by state statute. So that is some of the policy stuff that we work with, in addition to with the Department of Transportation, the Sun Trails program, and any of those other things that fall into that. Next slide. Okay, so now this is the regional level, and I've got BPAC listed here because I actually do presentations. In fact, it's a little bit easier now because I can do them virtually. So I'm not traveling as much, but we are doing virtual presentations to BPACs in Broward County and Palm Beach County and Pensacola. We actually work with partners in advocacy, such as bike walk organizations. So we are all, kind of fighting the same fight. And it's just good to have everybody on the same page. The numbers count when you start, presenting these types of arguments in front of legislators or elected officials. And also, in addition to policy and laws and what we're talking about, this is where some of our programming can come in, and we can do some of our educational outreach to MPOs, BPACs, to the regional groups, and then get them to even take our educational programming and do it locally through homeowners associations or Rotary clubs, things like that. Next slide. Okay, and then at the local level, we have our memberships, so we know localized where we can be, and we do have members as far as Pensacola down to Key West, so we do cover the state with membership. We do work with elected officials even locally. I'm actually just in the county below you in Pinellas County. So I'm in the city of Oldsmar, and I'm first name basis with all of our city council members. And so it's easy to talk policy laws. It's easy to get on the agenda for programming. And I find that you really need to request that once a year. It's a good fundamental basis to kind of go in front of the public every opportunity you can and talk about safety measures or best practices. So with the next slide, what we'll look at now is the education programming. So right now we have a speakers bureau, which is presentations, no charge, that we will present. Of course, COVID kind of stopped some of our in-person, but we are starting to shift into a virtual format. And like I said, this is one of them. We'll be doing virtual formats for other BPACs, and we'll probably look into anybody else that's meeting or doing virtual meetings. We can do that. We have an Ask Geo website. So this is actually where we have a former law enforcement officer answering bike law questions and actually archives all those questions. So if you ever have any questions about the law in the state of Florida, you can go to that website and probably find the answer because questions get asked all the time. We have what RLRM, that's our Ride Leader, Ride Marshal program. So this is an education program specific to group riders and training leaders for the group rides. It could be for a club, it could be for an organization such as a Bike Walk Central Florida, if they're doing their own types of group rides. Of course, right now, group rides are kind of on pause, but lower or smaller group participation certainly falls into play. We're not doing in-person training, but we are doing a virtual training. So if you go to our website, you can actually sign into that if you're interested. You must be a member of the association and then pay the fee. So this is just, again, going over fundamentals of laws and just best practices for riding with groups. And by groups, we're talking probably about, it could be a bike club of 40, but you try to get those staggered into groups of 8 to 10. That's a best practice we've learned over the years. That's a safe maneuver for a lot of the clubs, and we mention that every time we do the program. We have annual awards. I believe Commissioner Starkey knows all about that program, and she received one. And we do that on an annual basis. We actually open the nominations to the public. We start that on October 1st. We close them to January 31st of the following year, and then we start presenting them. So I was able to present 4 before the pandemic, and now it's just kind of drops, wearing a mask and that type of thing. But our award winners have been notified. We did cover them in our last newsletter. And again, that program's there, and anybody can make a nomination when we open them. And we make that announcement through our membership and on our website. And then for publications, this is where we actually use some proceed money from the Share the Road license plate to buy publications that we offer at no charge. One of them is a Florida Bicycle Pedestrian Law Enforcement Guide, and Tina is aware of that one because she's actually the one that started that back in the day. And we also have the Florida Bicycling Street Smarts Cycling Savvy Edition. Those are available. You can go on our website and order them, or email me, and we mail them no charge. Again, this is part of what the proceeds for the funding goes from the Share the Road tag to get education out the door to people that need it. Next slide. So we are actually introducing 2 new programs, one of which is the Bicycle Infrastructure Assistance Program. So this is where we're going to start acting somewhat as a liaison between advocates that want certain treatments or complete street treatment projects, and what's really feasible from the side of a FDOT or anybody else of that nature. Our program director is Ed Barsati. He's actually a kind of a retired executive director from Ride Illinois. He's an engineer. He's been doing it with Ride Illinois for years. And we've already actually started 2 kind of pilot tests of this program with Bike Walk Indian River County and with Sarasota Manatee Bicycle Club. So they had some treatments. One was a disappearing bike lane that as liaison between the 2 groups and getting to a resolve that actually works. So that's one of our new programs that we're just launching, probably officially by 2021, but right now it's getting talked about and getting used. And then next slide, there's this bicycle safety quiz. If you haven't found it yet, Florida has one. It's on the Alert Today Florida website. And it's an adult test of your knowledge on bicycle safety, and you can earn a bronze level or a silver or a gold level. Ed from Ride Illinois was actually part of developing that for Illinois before I asked Ride Illinois if we could have it over here in Florida, and worked with the Department of Transportation through Alert Today Florida to get that. But Ed also knows where else you can put this quiz. And so once he gets himself over here, he's going to become a snowbird for Florida. So we'll get him half of the year, and half of the year he's offered volunteer time to work on the infrastructure assistance program and to kind of get this current bicycle safety quiz into something that is a little bit more engaging. It can be done for youth, it can be done for law enforcement, it can be done for motorists. And he's had some success in Illinois with where they've been able to put that program in the high schools and have students actually kind of earn prizes or things like that through using it in the schools. So we're going to look at that. That's probably a year or so off, but it's on our radar. We know we can work with it. And so this last slide, Todd, is just kind of the all-encompassing, here's our network, here's our programs, and how it all fits. So that's my brief on the Florida Bicycle Association. And I know Tina had said something about legislative platform. I'm actually going to do a legislative platform presentation at the Tri-County BPAC meeting. And I've got to make a correction here because it's listed as September 16th. They actually meant Tuesday, September 15th. But I'll have a brief on our legislative platform. But Tina was right about the beacon bill, as we called it. It died in committee and went nowhere. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I thought that's a great report. First of all, I'm a member and I didn't know you did all that stuff, and I thought I was keeping up. So very impressive. Thank you for doing that for us.
And Becky just mentioned, for those of you not aware, the Share the Road tag, the Bicycle Share the Road Florida tag, helps fund FBA. So if you didn't know that, that's where that tag, that money goes to education. And it's been around for quite a few years. So if you don't have one, get one.
All right. I think you're up again, Tina.
So this was supposed to be a Sam topic, but I wanted to give everybody an up-to-date on the Anclote Coastal Trail. They're in the final stages of it. Thankfully, weather plays a big part, as you know, when we get to this part of the stage of a trail construction. We're actually talking about a ribbon cutting in October. So that tells you how close we are to it.
Wow.
Along those lines, we're going to bring back the ribbon cutting for the Starkey Gap along that same time. So we're going to figure something out one way or another. Even if it's like what we're doing now with social distancing, we're going to look at some kind of ribbon cutting. And I don't know if we're going to call it a ribbon cutting, by the way, but some kind of grand opening for both of those trails in the fall. We want to wait till after September. We all know why. So we're looking in October for both of those trails to have a ribbon cutting.
Tina, I think that trail is supposed to connect to a trail that's going to be built in Pinellas that goes from the Pinellas Trail to the Anclote Coastal. Do you know the status of that?
I'm working on that.
Okay.
Okay, I've been trying to get with Pinellas, and Becky knows that.
Really,
So,
I guess
yeah.
it's Tarpon, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're working on that as well, that connection.
Okay.
And then the Hardy Trail, we already mentioned basically earlier about coming in the next meeting and get since that route study's done, get a better idea of what that's going to look at. We might have somebody on board too by then as a consultant for that too. So.
Great.
That's going to lead me into new members, if you don't mind, Randy.
Please.
So I wanted to thank, we have Al, which is an alternate for Commissioner Mariano, and we have Anthony, who is now the spot for Commissioner Mariano and that district. David is the alternate for Commissioner Starkey. And thankfully, because Gunther couldn't sit in, you actually got to sit in today because of this new hybrid format as well. I might have to have you unmute David. David, excuse me, Dan with the Pasco Sheriff's Office, you still there?
They found me.
You weren't looking for me.
So Dan, are you there with Pasco Sheriff's Office? He's on the list there. So we have a representative now with Pasco Sheriff's Office. Dan was picked. He's with one of their traffic units and stuff. So hopefully we can get him here live for a presentation or a presentation in the near future when we talked about that enforcement. But we now have a representative from Pasco Sheriff's Office. I'm hoping to get someone from from Florida Highway Patrol too, because believe it or not, they're the one that do our crash reports in Pasco County. So it'd be nice to have them sitting on here too as well. So those are our new members. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Welcome aboard.
All right. And I think,
This is a simple question.
It has to be simple.
Such a thing as fire trails.
We do have fire break. This is the guy that can probably answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, can you be more specific?
I'm
Well,
assuming.
let's put it this way. We now have a major park adjacent to our community. It's pretty wooded in there. Now, the thing is, I have mentioned to Mr. Mariano, and he says, you know, he'd look into it. Why don't we get a topographical map of the park? I mean, you have all these people using this park. We don't know where a lot of these people drift. I'm just saying, in the event of a fire, we don't know what our boundaries are. If we should or should not have fire trails in there.
Yeah, I mean.
Is his
I would only
microphone
know-
turned on? Check
No,
it.
his microphone's not. He was
Okay,
asking if,
turn it
if
on.
there were such things as fire trails, and when we look at Sunwest Mine, or Sunwest Park, excuse me, old timer here, but, where, people would be able to evacuate and also protect the park from fire, that would not be a issue for my work, because that's not our property, so.
And the reason why fire break roads are a swift mud, and that's what,
Right.
yeah, Southwest
Yeah.
Water. But that park being, it's a county park, correct?
yeah.
So they have some kind of emergency management plan for fire as well.
And that's right near the water, so some of that might be a little more protected than other areas.
Well, you also have it bordering the community, plus your Old Dixie Highway.
Yeah.
So I mean, that whole area goes all the way back, you know, butting up into the Gulf.
Thank you.
all right, very good. So Tina has provided us a schedule of meetings. So you might want to look at those and be sure this is okay with everybody. And
So-
hopefully with the virus, we're learning how to work with it, so we're just going to move ahead now.
So the MPO, CAC, they've always met monthly. We've only been the really group that's met bi-monthly. So they're going to that every other month unless something comes up that needs to be attended to. And that's the same thing for us. So I just wanted to show you their monthly schedule. And if you, the next slide, I picked out our dates for, so our dates would fall kind of what they were this year. We'll figure out the location situation as we get further in the year and we know what location is that we're going to be able to do. Again, with the hybrid, we have to have it here or Dade City to do this hybrid virtual format. And we can look at that definitely for the future. We were going to be at Land O'Lakes this meeting, but that we couldn't do that because of this hybrid format. So we'll look at locations maybe towards the end of the year. We might have a better feel for how we're going to do these meetings maybe by the end of the year next year as well. So
Mr. Chairman, should we vote on this, or we want to wait on the schedule?
We can vote on it, but I think it's the schedule we've had in the past. So if you wish to have a vote, I'm happy with that, or we can just say, that's great, Tina.
I make a motion, we accept the 2021 schedule of monthly meetings for BPAC as proposed.
Thank you.
All right, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Tina.
and then the next meeting, we will have to start the discussion about elections and memberships and how to proceed. And we'd like to do that so we can have a fresh start for the new year as well. So just be thinking that. I got everybody's name on there. I've got the new folks on there as well. But be thinking about if you want to stay on, hopefully you will. And hopefully we'll have a little bit better understanding how we're going to be doing the BPAC in the next couple of months, the next couple of meetings. I told you we want to kind of change the format a little bit really dive into engineering, education, and enforcement, which is what this group should be a part of. So be thinking of that, and we'll have those discussions at our next meeting and about moving forward with the members as well. And anybody that you want to bring on, please do, because we're only as good as the community that is involved with us as well. So.
Hey, Tina, I just noticed my name was misspelled.
And I'm also illegal. My term expired.
We're all expired.
That last motion is no good now.
Some of you may remember, we redid the bylaws at the request of MPO. And so everybody's term started over at the same time. And so we all expire at the same time. So
some of us had some comments about that.
We're going to look at those bylaws just because that doesn't work very well, as you know, that everybody expires at the same time. I remember I was the first part of the first Pasco BPAC, and we intentionally made sure we didn't do that. It works better that way. So,
Sure.
So we'll look at those bylaws, and you'll be looking at those bylaws too, as well. And I'll just finish up. Bike Wall Summit, probably all of you have seen something somewhere about the summit that Tampa Bay Bike Walk's doing Thursday. David Gwynn with DOT, I think, is on there. So if you haven't, it's a free meeting. I can send you the link. I think I sent it a couple of weeks ago. I can send it again. But a very good opportunity for that virtual meeting with Bike Walk Tampa Bay with some players as well. I think there's some really key folks on that meeting that if you want to be a part of, go ahead and do that. And then our Tri-County meeting is in September. I'll verify the date. The date keeps on going back and forth. It will be a virtual meeting. We had talked about doing a real meeting, and it just doesn't work right now. So we'll be a virtual meeting. I'll send out that link pretty soon. I didn't want to get people confused and send it out before this meeting. So I'll send out that link and verify. That agenda should be coming pretty soon as well. For my new folks, we have a Tri-County BPAC meeting every quarter. Well, it's now about 6 months apart. It used to be every quarter, and now they're about 6 months apart. But we meet with Hillsborough, Pasco, and Pinellas and kind of go over regional issues. We're getting ready to do a map together too, which we're working on our map, by the way, okay?
Very good.
I was going to say,
We're getting there.
next agenda
We're
item.
getting there. We're almost there. So we're going to have a regional map too that's going to be updated as well. So that meeting is coming up in September as well.
So the Pasco County GIS staff that were working on the online map, that as well?
Yeah, so Nathan with GIS and then at Parks, she is actually on the line too. We've been working really hard on our bike map as well. And we wanted something similar to Hillsborough and Pinellas because again, we're gonna be making one map with everything in it. So we're really close on finalizing that map as well. Nathan's had a lot to do, unfortunately, our GIS, you know that better than anybody. Our GIS people get pulled every day for something, but we're almost done with that. The biggest thing is cleaning up the stuff that's wrong.
Yeah.
So that's been taking a while to snip that out, so.
You had to ask for the link a couple of times that Mark and I had worked on that map. But who was that for and what was that?
So a lot of things like, and I'll give you an example, Cypress Creek, the paved part wasn't on our map. Okay. So just verifying different trails that are paved and untrailed and sidewalks and stuff. Yeah. Some of those things, you already had that layer so we could use it to verify. And I've gone out to quite a few places to look at them. You can look at Google Map and and Google Earth and stuff and you still don't see. Yeah. Can't see a lot of things. So we used your map for a lot of stuff that I knew was there and just wanted to snip it and send it to him and then he can create that layer because he has to create that layer so it's in our map.
I had to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I did heads up digitize, just use the imagery or if I knew it existed. All right, thank you.
A long process, but we're getting there. That's been, I guess, a 2-year process, so.
At least.
Been my bailiwick. Anything else?
So anything else for the good of the group?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
It's about section on State Road 52, east of Bellamy Brothers. There's like a very wide trail there that's kind of short. What exactly is that?
It's gonna connect as they expand the road further west. There's proposed to be a trail on the north side, on the same side of 52.
Right.
To connect to that at Bellamy Brothers, all the way to the Parkway.
All the way to the Parkway?
Yeah.
Does that have a name?
If you go to a DOT, actually Google FDOT State Road 52 Pasco County Road Projects or something, you'll get the website and there's actually maps and they break it down into 3 different projects from Bellamy Brothers to 41, from 41 to the Suncoast, and then whatever they already finished to the east.
Okay, good.
So that list of
Barbara,
priorities.
Tina?
On there like that, it's in 3 segments.
Right.
And it's all based on funding.
Hey, Tina?
Sorry, it's all based on funding. Yes?
That brings up an interesting question that I've been meaning to bring up to this group. So there's a trail on State Road 56 that goes maybe from Bruceby Downs all the way to 301.
Right.
And it doesn't have a name. And, you know, do we want to call it Wiregrass Trail, or, I mean, do we want to submit names to the county? I think it needs a name.
Is it county or is it a DOT road though?
It's, you know, well, it's State Road 56, but I think we can name the trail. They don't name trails.
That's a county question, so.
We can think of ideas, guys. We could be the ones that come up with it. I've been calling it 56 Trail, but I just wonder if we want to think about it, advancing a name.
You know, that's a good question. I think people, since it's my area, I think people over there would embrace a good name.
Yep.
I think they'd like to probably have some input. So if you like, I'll try to start at least talking a little bit about it and see if I can generate any interest there.
Yeah, I mean, we can have a contest and drive people to our website or something, you know.
Sounds good.
Named after a local hero?
Could be.
Catherine Starkey Trail.
No, I already got one.
Make a motion, we
got other commissioners we got to consider over there, so. But we got 2 of them is the issue, so.
No commissioner names.
make a motion, we adjourn.
All right, anything else for the good of the group? And so I don't hear anything else, so let me just say, as chairman, and I will say this at my next MPO report, things are moving well, Tina. So I feel like perhaps for the first time we have a good organization and a good roadmap of getting ahead. So I want to thank you a lot for what you're doing.
I second that. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
And I third that.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.